And now for something completely different.
Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. I came here for the truth. Are you planting seeds or growing weeds? Community is our family, faith, and friends. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. Welcome to MAINSTREE, the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show, and I am Craig L. Hayes. It is let me see, what is today? Today is the 14th? Yep. Today is the 14th of January, 2026. We are halfway through the month of January already. Seemed like it was just Christmas. Remember, folks, we've only got about 350 days left of Christmas shopping to do before Christmas. And we're going to go on to this Main Street show. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this, with somebody I've known since he was like 12 years old. And I think I was like 17 or somewhere in that vicinity when I first met this guy. And he is a great guy. I'm so honored to know him all these years and basically kind of grow up with him in some ways and be a part of the family here in Las Vegas as we were all growing up when he moved here from his native Maori land of New Zealand. And yeah, it's going to be great. We are coming to you live from the chapel that we all went to for many, many years, and he still goes to this chapel. I went here for like 50 years, and he's still going and going and going, and he just won't leave the building. Not like Elvis. Elvis has not left the building here. So anyways, folks, his name is Wendell Snow, and he's going to have a chat, and we're going to talk about his life, his history, and all the things that he's done in his life to be a part of the community and be who he is, and someone that I appreciate dearly. So welcome to the show, Wendell.
Well, thanks for having me, Craig. Excited to be here.
Great. Love having you here. And I'm looking forward to this for a little while. I actually started this podcast, this new one, and you're only the second person that's been on it so far. Just, people in mind of friends and stuff like that, and get their story, their history, where they came from, how they got to this interesting town called Las Vegas, and what did they do here, and what did they do with their life. So with that, why don't you start from being as Joe Pesci would say, tell us as your Ute, being a Ute, and growing up there in New Zealand and coming here. Let's start with that, I guess.
Sure. So I was born in New Zealand in 1968, and in a suburb of the main city, Auckland, a suburb called Otahuhu. And we lived in the Auckland area for like the first 3 years of my life, and then we ended up moving down to the South Island to a city called Christchurch. And we were there for a period of time. Then we moved back up to a suburb of Auckland in the North Island for another few years, and then we moved back south again. And we were living in Christchurch up until 1980 when we came to the United States. And it's interesting, the reason we came to the United States is because during the 70s, the Humana Corp, the medical group, were hiring foreign nurses, and my mother was a registered nurse in New Zealand, and so my father loved coming to America. He had a tour business, and Las Vegas was one of his favorite towns. And so he hatched a plan to get us over to the States, and they capitalized on the program that Humana had for bringing in foreign nurses. And there's a bit of a sad side to that in that, the reason Humana was doing that was sort of to undercut the American nurses by bringing in all these foreign nurses for less. But that was a program that actually benefited our family, and we were granted alien status, residency status, to come to America, the whole family, my father, my mother, and my two older brothers. And so we landed in Las Vegas in 1980, and it was a great time, I think, to come into the States, and a great time to be in Vegas. Vegas was was still kind of a small town. I think we were only over 300,000 at the time in the valley proper.
I graduated in '80, and I think it was like 250.
Right,
I don't-
right.
Yeah, it was less than 300. I was like right around the 250 mark. Yeah, it was pretty small still. So.
Yeah, yeah, it was just beyond being a cowpoke town, and just barely. But so we were able to come here, started high school, and went to Valley High School. I think you went to Valley also, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, were you at KO when you first came over?
No, so actually, I went to Orr Middle School,
Oh, okay.
or junior high school at the time, for half a year, because we came in January, so it was halfway through the school year. And then I went over to KO Knutson for 8th and 9th grade, because this is back when there was junior high schools, and Valley only had 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And so I did KO for 8th and 9th grade, and then went to Valley for 10, 11, 12. And graduated in '85, so just 5 years after you. But
Had you been to the Vegas before on any of your dad's tours? Was landing here and living here your first? Hello, Vegas.
no, landing here in 1980 was my first Vegas exposure.
Wow.
Dad had come here a few times, but I don't think he ever brought myself or any of my older brothers to the U.S. I'd been to Australia a couple of times with Dad. And then Talbot had been to more places. He'd been to Fiji and Tahiti and Australia and I can't remember where else, but never to the U.S. But my parents had been here a number of times, and of course my dad had been here quite a few times with his tour business. And he just loved Las Vegas. He thought, this is the place. But,
So you're basically 12 years old.
yep.
You show up in Vegas, and it's not a Vegas like it was. Today is not like it was back then.
No,
You
no.
know, it was still, there was probably only about 20 hotels. There wasn't
Right.
a lot of the other stuff around town. I mean, it was a very different Las Vegas.
Very different.
But still, compared to, what was the first thing you noticed when you came here? It was a little bit different than your nice green, lush New Zealand.
Yeah, so actually we landed in Los Angeles when we first got here, and we spent, must have been about a week roughly in Anaheim, and which is actually pretty green and quite nice, and we went to Disneyland for like 3 days in a row, which that was just an absolutely mind-blowing Kiwi kid's dream, and I remember a few of my friends, when we were leaving New Zealand, heard that we were going to Disneyland. They were just like, that's almost an impossibility for a New Zealander to go to Disneyland back then. And so they were jealous, and we loved it. I absolutely loved it. And, of course, this is back when Disneyland was giving you those little coupon books for rides, and
Yeah.
the e-ticket was the one to get. So,
Yep.
so you could ride the big rides. But, so, L.A. was nice and green, or Anaheim area nice and green. We get on the plane, and as we're flying into McCarran Airport, I remember thinking that there was probably the casinos on the Strip. We had seen the TV show Vegas with Dan Tanner, and we'd seen a few other, American shows that showed the Strip. But we didn't think there was anything beyond the Strip. We thought, well, maybe they live in little boxes behind the casinos or something. But as we're flying in, there wasn't a lot when in 1980s we're flying in, but I remember just thinking, look how brown and desolate it is as we're flying in, across the south side of the valley into McCarran. And, it was just, I couldn't believe how brown it was. And because it was also winter. It was January 1980, and everything was just brown. And so that was interesting, realizing that there's actually a town here.
Yeah, flying in at that time would be interesting. Then, we have the brown season, which is winter. Then we have brown season with some green interspersed around. That's called summer. So,
Yeah, there's no spring or fall.
no,
Just,
that's basically two. Spring and fall last usually about, I don't know, between 3 days and a week.
right.
And then it goes right into the next one. It's like, go past go, and you go right into the.
Yeah, I kid with people, but it's not far from wrong. I say that we get 7 days of spring and 7 days of fall, and that's it. We just get 14 choice days. The end.
Yep. And then it's back into the heat or back into cold.
Yep.
No, I remember when you guys did move here, and it was a while before I really got to know you guys.
Right.
I think it was down the road where finally, Talbot was hanging out with Johnny Valdenegro and his friends and stuff, and then Talbot started putting back together his CAS, his
Right. Sound system.
sound system for DJing and stuff, because that's what he'd left behind, and your dad was taking care of that to get him started again. And I was like, oh, well, this kid got some pretty cool stuff. Let's see what he's got, because I was into it, into the sound stuff. He was into it. So, I guess it was just meant to be that him and I started hanging out. And you and my little brother started hanging out. And so basically it was just like, I guess we're all going to be hanging out together now.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott and I started riding bikes, terrorizing the neighborhood on our bikes.
Your early motorcycle club or bikes and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Got your colors in your jackets. And, yeah. That's in 1980. Yeah. And I think it was the following. It had to be, the following. What month did you land in?
Yeah, so it was either late January or early February when we actually got into the valley, and in 1980. And interestingly enough, we hadn't been here a couple of days, and then it started raining, and it actually rained for like a week solid. And I remember thinking, oh, this isn't so bad. And somebody told me, no, this is not normal.
Yeah, that's not going to do this every year. So
Yeah, and it wasn't normal. And but it was good. It was nice to have a nice rainy welcome.
Yeah, yeah. 5 inches of here at the most, basically.
Right,
So,
right.
that's not much at all. Yeah, so you got here in like January. I think. I mean, Talbot was in at church with us in one of the quorums and stuff like that. I can't remember if he was. I don't think he was in priests with us. I think he was still a teacher at that time. It's hard for me to remember back that far.
Yeah, he was 15, 16.
So he had probably been just a teacher for a while, and then
Possibly, yeah.
got into the priest quorum a little bit later.
Yep.
And when he came into the priest quorum, I remember it was kind of funny. Yeah, I think it was just right after that he became a priest.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
April, he would have turned 16. Yep.
Because he was in there talking, and I'm listening to this guy talk, and I go, this guy talks kind of funny, and Bobby pulling her like, hey, what's wrong with this dude?
Yep. Yeah, we had our British accents when,
Yeah.
when we got here.
Your New Zealander accents, yeah. It was, yeah, who would have thought that it'd be the three amigos, Bobby, your brother, and me,
Yep.
start hanging out and getting into trouble.
Yep. Start terrorizing the strip.
Yeah. Interesting times. It was the town was so different back then.
Way different. Yep.
And then it just keeps on going. So you're obviously you came here to church. We're at the Palora Chapel here.
Paradise Stake Center.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool place to do this. It was a good idea to do it from here. And it's like, I come in here and it's like, memories. Okay, let's start the memories again. Because so you were 12, 13 at that time, going to KO. Then high school. What was high school like? What was your?
Well, I don't recall being a serious student in New Zealand, but I had decent grades. And then coming here, there was a little bit of culture shock. Sure, we spoke English, but things were different. One thing that confused me was sort of the jock mentality that most kids my age had, and if you had a friend, the last thing you do was talk smack about him or his mom, and Joe Mama was the big thing back in the 80s. And I remember I became pretty good friends with this kid, and he said to me one day, Joe Mama, and I was like, what? I had never heard that, and somebody saying, yeah, he's capping on your mom. And I'm like, why would he doesn't even know my mother. Why would he even, he's supposed to be my friend. And I didn't understand that at all. And then the other thing was, a friend would come up and punch you in the arm. And I'm like, did I do something wrong? And did I piss you off? Or I don't understand. And so it was interesting to try to get my head around that. The other thing was that a lot of the U.S. kids were totally unserious about school, and sadly, I kind of bought into that. I thought, oh, okay, we can just totally, be dummies at school and not do anything, and so I managed to inch all the way through and graduate on time, but I was not, I wasn't trying, and so I regret that. I really wished I would have tried to apply myself, and rather than just inch by, and maximize that learning experience. But yeah, there was just so much reason not to. I kind of enjoyed hanging out with the stoners, actually, and not because I was doing drugs. I never did drugs, but I liked how laid back and mellow they were in comparison to other kids who just seemed pretty uptight and judgmental or whatever. And so a lot of my friends were stoners, and but I never went with them to their drug parties or anything like that. But I just liked how laid back and chill they were. So
I think the culture is so different now as far as high school. Not meaning kids are different or anything like that, but while you were there, you had a smoking section of school, even though everybody there was too young to smoke. They had a designated smoking section for all the kids that smoked to go stand out in, outside and stuff. Now, not even teachers are allowed to smoke at school. They have to walk off campus, basically.
yeah, that was bizarre. Valley High School having a smoking section.
Yeah.
That was just incredible. And so, but yeah, I would just walk past that and try to hold my breath.
Yeah, here too. It's always over there by the gym. The locker rooms for for PE and stuff. So, yeah, it was such a different setup back then. And just everything was different. And so then you just went to high school. You finally graduate,
Right.
without any real honors, but that's
Right.
who cares? As I tell people, I was in the top 90% of my class. And they look at me and they go, "Does that mean you're like in the bottom 10?" Yep, I was. I graduated with like a 1.8, man, because I never went. I hated school.
Yeah, it's a shame that I think I had a 2.0, but that was all I needed, so I was out.
Yeah. My diploma says the same as those guys that spent, hours every night in homework and they got a 4.0 for 4 years, and it's like, good for you.
Yep,
My diploma says the exact same thing. So.
exactly.
And no, I was always on the cusp of being kicked out of school again, So after high school, what was your favorite? Let's go to high school. High school, what was your favorite class? I mean, everybody, no matter what they do in high school and how much they detest it, they still had something they really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, so I used to like drawing, love drawing, and but what's funny is I hated my art class, and I did not like the art teachers. Part of me was like, how dare you criticize my artwork? You're putting a grade on my artwork.
Hold on one second. Was Parker?
Yeah, Mr. Parker was.
Parker. He was such a pain.
Yeah,
I took that too because I'll let you finish your story, but I took it because I loved doing architecture and drafting and stuff.
right.
And I would always get a note from Mr. Peterson,
Right.
Edgar Peterson, and he'd always sit there and say, work on your contrast, between these lines and stuff like this. So I went, I'll take a class in art and just work on that and have the teacher teach me a little bit better about this. And he did nothing but berate everything I was drawing in architecture class. And I was like, and I just said, I'm done here. I walked out. I was like, I'm not coming back here. I didn't come here to learn how to draw an apple. I could care less about an apple.
Right. Yeah, funnily enough, the first parent-teacher conference I ever had here in the States was me complaining about Mr. Parker, and my mother came in and and basically we sat down and had an argument, and I basically said that I felt like I was being unfairly judged or whatever, and Mr. Parker was like, what? I don't understand. But I think he was just, he seemed so hardcore and wound up about art that, as far as I understood, art was sort of free expression, and so I don't know why, but funny is they ended up getting a new art teacher, Mr. Jensen, who was certainly a little more reasonable. I think the last art class I took was with him, But he was a bit of a weirdie. He wanted to have nudes in the class for us to draw, and
Wow.
of course the principal wouldn't allow it.
I wonder why.
Yeah, and but I remember he kind of propositioned a few of the students in the class about posing nude, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy's and then including me, because he said he liked round people, and I was round. And I was like, no, thank you. And he actually was a good guy, and I think he was probably earnestly. I don't think he was a pedophile, and I think he just really liked human form.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of scary when the teacher says, "You have the perfect round body."
So he actually was a nice guy, but I don't know. I'd hate to pass judgment on him without really knowing for sure.
Exactly, but it's just one of those things you can only do off what you saw, and it's like, yeah, okay, we'll just call it down as bizarre.
Yeah.
Not that you were a predator or anything like that, but you're just a little bizarre.
Right. Bizarre.
But in college and stuff, that's not a big deal. They do in college, but that's college.
Right.
Everybody's over 18, and
Right.
nobody cares.
Right. Now, you mentioned Mr. Peterson, Edgar Peterson. I took a drafting class, and that was an excellent class. I loved it, and he was a fantastic teacher, and that was by far the one class I probably did the best in, focused-wise and everything. And I learned so much going forward about art from his drafting class, that was probably one of the best classes I ever had was Mr. Peterson's.
Yeah,
drafting
because he
class.
would teach you, your construction lines. He would teach you your, defining lines. He would teach,
Right.
and then your shading on things. And I mean, because I did drafting 1, 2, and 3, and then while I was doing drafting 1, 2, and 3, I also did architecture 1 and 2, which were all very, very in-depth, hard classes.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I didn't ditch.
Right.
Everything else I was ditching. Blow that. I'm not going there. English. Why do I got to take English? I'm never going to England.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So-
Well, another class I remember, it wasn't a great class and I didn't love it, but it was U.S. government. We had a French teacher. I forget her name, but she had a thick accent, and she knew nothing about our U.S. government. And the students were teaching her. I don't know how she ended up as our U.S. government teacher. And she was a lovely lady, but she didn't understand all the ins and outs. And the students were constantly correcting her on how many senators there were and how the 3 branches break out. And
Wow. That's kind of scary to a certain degree there. And like you say, it was probably one of those things they couldn't find anybody to teach the class. And
Right.
she was new here, and they said, "Would you mind doing it?" And it was like, "Sure." Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know anything about the class. That's okay. You'll learn as you go. You and the kids
Right,
can all
right.
learn as you go.
It was kind of fun because she would interject with thoughts on the French government.
Yeah.
And there's some similarities, obviously, but the finer details. But I remember too. Everybody's like, you got to pick a side. You got to be a Democrat or you got to be a Republican. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to be either. And so just for kicks, I ran around saying, I'm a socio-Republicrat. And they're like, well, no, you can't do that. That's not right. And I'm like, well, I'm not even a U.S. citizen, so it doesn't matter. And I can't pick a party. And so at the time, I was not a U.S. citizen. So anyway, that was kind of a fun thing to jab around with my friends.
Isn't it amazing that the kids were teaching her a little bit about our government, about constitutionalism, about stuff like this, and today you would go in there and the kids would go, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
Well, remember
clueless.
who fought the Revolutionary War, and the kids would all go, "Japan."
Yeah, people.
I don't know. I mean, that's the education. I think is just gone into the sink in so many ways on these things.
Right.
And we don't teach civics. We don't teach constitutionality. We don't do
No.
that anymore here. And this is the people who are going to be running stuff here, which is kind of scary.
Yep.
No, that'd be actually kind of cool. I kind of enjoyed my U.S. government. You had to take U.S. government. You had to take U.S. history and U.S. government. So to graduate. So I liked the government class. That was kind of fun to take that one. So there was a couple classes I actually enjoyed taking, but for the most part, high school,
Yep.
blah.
Yeah, in fact, I did not want to go to college, and it took me 8 years to finally realize, okay, I probably need some college, and so I went back to UNLV in '93. So I graduated '85. Went to start. No, I think it was '92. I started at UNLV, and then it only took me 8 years to get my 4-year degree, and
You want to rush, you got to pace yourself.
right,
You
right.
know, but before you did the college, you went on a mission, right?
Right, that's
Oh.
right. So in '88,
My memory. Hold on one second. My memory. It was Texas.
yep,
San Antonio.
that's right.
Okay.
Texas San Antonio mission. So yeah, '88 to '90, served English speaking. I wished I had gone Spanish speaking. That would have been great to have learned a language.
That language, yeah.
And I mean, I picked up some Spanglish while I was there, but yeah, no, '88 to '90, loved it actually. I tell you, I'd never been outside of the state of Nevada or California. Maybe I'd been to Arizona, but never been to the South there. And the South was great, man. The Southern hospitality, found that to be alive and well. People were so dang friendly. They invite you in, sit you down, feed you. Just don't talk about religion.
Yeah.
And so they'd be your best friends, but the minute you started talking church, all right, you need to leave. And so I was like, all right, well.
And don't mess with their Bible. They know their Bible.
Yeah, and fair enough. And they were, too, very Christian, and very God-centered, and loved them, and, good people. And talk about great food. Holy mackerel. Everybody had a smoker, and it was always smoking. And so you could always find a good meal, and probably the last thing I needed, but it was great. Loved it. Texas was awesome.
And did you do a 2-year?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 years. So
Because they tried that 1.5 for a little while, and then they went back to 2 years. you
Yep.
know. That's cool. Missions are the most incredible thing to go and do, and spend 1.5, 2 years teaching the gospel. There's not a whole lot better in the world than doing that.
right. It's such a good wake up and realize what you're doing, what you believe, and sort of annealing everything together in your life, and learn some valuable lessons on the mission. So great stuff.
Yeah, about the time you all came up this neck of the woods, I went down to your neck of woods,
That's right, Aussie land.
I went down to Aussie land about the same time you guys got here, like a year later. So
Yep, served your mission in Australia.
I met a lot of guys that knew you guys, some relatives.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to say this. In the world of being a Maori, everybody is your cousin.
Yep.
And a couple of guys that were over in Perth with us, I go, Snows? Oh, yeah, they're my cousins.
Yep.
Okay, 2nd, 5th, 18th. Well, I mean,
Right.
where in that line are we? Oh, I don't know, somewhere around there.
Yep.
It
Goes back to Maui.
Yeah, it was awesome to be around those guys. It was just so much fun. I love the Polynesian people. My best buddy out there on the mission was Namahoe from Hawaii, and
Cool.
and Samoan was Soloway. So I had all these Poly brothers that I was always around down there. That just loved being around them.
Yep.
Get along great with them.
Yeah, that was interesting too. My second companion in my mission was also Polynesian, born in New Zealand, but moved to California as a youth, and then he serving in Texas. And when we got to be companions, he called his mother, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Mum, I'm serving with Wendell Snow," and she said, "Oh, is his mother's name Martina?" And so he asked me, and I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I went to nursing school with his mum, and actually you're named after his mum." So it turns out my companion, his first name in Polynesian was Martina Harisi Iono, but he translated that to Martin Harris Iono, and so, which it kind of is.
It's close, yeah.
But he was named after my mother, and I was like, what are the chances that we would end up here in Texas on our missions, and his mother and my mother went to nursing school together in New Zealand, and he's named after my mother, and so.
Well, there's some strange things that do happen like that, and like down in Australia, we went out to an area where some members were running a stud ranch, horse racing stud ranch.
Okay.
Went in there and talked to them because I heard they were from they were Americans. The mom and dad were were from America, and went in and started talking to them. And they said, well, where are you from? I said, Las Vegas. And they were like, oh, we used to live in Vegas. I was like, where'd you guys live? And they said, but down by the Showboat. So they were just down the street here. And they were like, like a mile away
Wow.
when they lived here. So it's like, what are the chances?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Weird stuff like that all over the place,
Yep. Good times.
Yeah, missions are just like that. And I went down there with a guy that I'd known who was in a completely other end of town. And we went to boys' camps up in BYU, summer camps.
Okay.
And we end up on the mission at the same time together. And
Wow.
then, and same group, same everything. It was just weird things like that happen on those things. So we'll just and you can't even plan anything like that. It's so like, wow, how did that ever happen?
Yeah, it's the Lord intervening.
Then we were put together, and then we have a guy that, excuse me, should have muted that, and I didn't. Bad on me. And his name's Ron DeMille, and used to knew him. I knew him back here in Vegas also. Same type of setup. Go away. Sorry, I got to get back to one thing here.
It's all good. Yeah, when I graduated from UNLV with a teaching degree, Bachelor's of Science in Bachelor's of Science to teach science classes, and got my teacher license and the provisional 5-year license. But I was working as an appraiser, putting myself through school, and I began to realize I was going to make a lot more money as an appraiser than as a teacher. And so I kind of, I just ended up staying in the appraisal profession and let my teacher license lapse, because I was just like, I just can't afford to teach. Bit of a shame, but appraising's been great.
Yeah. Well, Wendell, that'll come to the end of this first episode. I'm going to mute us out, then we're going to take it away. Then we'll come back in just a minute. We'll do episode number 2. So until then, thank you for listening to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show.